Hey, good afternoon, all. This is Tim here, and I guess it's our 12th or 13th anniversary of the Boxing Day tsunami. Well, nothing like that today, but we do have thunderstorms out there, and this is a quick look at them. We had some heavy rain earlier. So there's pretty much a line of storms from north of Tyler to Waco, and let's see what's causing those. And before I start into this webcast, we are doing it 3 hours early. And that's because we're doing our Christmas gift opening stuff today. Yesterday and Christmas Eve, that was just kind of a Christmas dinner kind of thing. So I'm going to be in Dallas and going to be tied up with that. So I can't really do the webcast at the usual time, but we can do that now. Let's take a look at the thermodynamics. We can look at the surface-based CAPE. And you can see, yes, we do have some instability out there. About 1,500 to 2,500 joules per kilogram. Enough to support those showers you saw just a minute ago. We can also look at the most unstable layer. And we get pretty much similar readings from about 1,000 to 2,000, because the best parcels are pretty close to the surface. And then for a more representative look at parcel lift, we can take a look at the most unstable parcel, or I'm sorry, not mixed layer. So we're taking the lowest 100 millibars, which is probably about 2,000 to 2,500 feet deep. And we get values that are a little bit more representative, right in about the 1,500 range. And that's more in line with the kind of cells that you saw outside. And behind that, very cool stable air coming in from the northwest. So we'll switch over to the surface map and check this out. Leading edge of the front, basically from Long Interstate 30 from Little Rock down to Waco and down to the Texas Hill Country around down to Del Rio and the Big Bend. And behind that, 50s and 60s. You can see the dew points in this area are a lot lower than what we have to the south. Down there we have 70s and some upper 60s, and north of that 30s and 20s. So the main temperature, the main air mass contrast here is moisture, not so much dew point. And you can use moisture as a way to differentiate the two air masses and find where the front is. And going strictly by that, that pretty much places it right along the same line. So 69 there at Corsicana, and down to 29 for dew point at DFW. It's a pretty huge difference. All right, we'll take a quick look at the upper air chart. I'm going to use the DIFAX series from INSEP. These are kind of like the official upper air charts. And we see the main polar front jet coming from Tucson and Albuquerque up to Chicago. And looks like a little bit of a subtropical jet, maybe kind of coupled together over Texas. And those winds there, 100 knots. Down in Dallas, 60 knots. And keep in mind that this pattern has shifted eastward during the day. There's a little bit of thunder out there. I don't know if you can hear that, but we are getting some cells right outside. That'll be fun to do a webcast in the middle of a thunderstorm. I'm sure that day is going to be coming soon. But you can see with these 50, 60 knot winds, that allows a lot of separation between the downdraft and updraft, and that gives us some long-lived cells. And one way to think of that is you take a fountain of water, like maybe a jet from a garden hose. If you point that straight up and it falls right back down on you and you get wet, you're going to want to turn that off, because you get all that water splashing down on you. But if there's very gusty winds blowing on you and it carries the fountain of water elsewhere, then you're going to stay dry and keep that water on. And that's kind of a little bit of an analogy of upper level shear, of bulk shear. So you get separation between the updraft and downdraft, and the falling downdraft doesn't fall into the updraft and ruin the buoyancy and the instability. 500 millibar chart looking like this, pretty much a similar picture. And what's significant about 500 millibars is that you're not going to find the subtropical jet this low. So if you're in doubt where the subtropical jet is, and you're seeing this, then you're going to know for sure that that's a polar front jet. So there it is, right there from Albuquerque and Wichita up to Chicago. And this also kind of tells us where the surface fronts are. So the main troughs are down here, the ridges are here, and so we're going to expect to find the surface fronts just to the south of that jet, kind of like in this area here. The troughing aloft is being caused by cold air advection coming in the backside. The ridging is caused by warm air advection from warm air flowing south to north. And so, of course, we find the front right in between. And then the 850 millibar chart, we haven't used that very much in our webcast. We are going to make a lot of use of this during the spring, because not only does it give us an idea of the air mass just off the surface, but it gives us an idea where the low-level jet is. And we do have a weak low-level jet in place. See that right there? 40-50 knots from Texarkana, Little Rock, and then we get as high as 70 knots in northern Michigan, and that's very strong. It's pretty rare we see 70 knots at 850 like that. I just noticed you probably can't see that. There we go. 70 knots right there in northern Michigan this morning. And if we look at the isotherms, these dashed lines right here, we can pick out where the front is just above the surface. And that's going to be something like that. Very apparent over Lake Huron in Ontario, where there's this very strong gradient, and that isotherm banding shows up very strong right there too. Becomes a little weaker down here, but if we keep that just to the south of the banding, then we know exactly where the 850 front is. And this is usually going to stack towards the cold air from the surface front. So if we have the surface front here, we're going to find the 850 millibar front a little north of there. And then, of course, the 500 millibar front, that's going to be even further north. So that's part of the process of analysis, is finding vertical consistency between your fronts and your air masses. Okay. The sounding, this is one reason we're getting those showers and thunderstorms right now. You can see a little bit of moisture there, and that corresponds to dew points in the 15 to 18 Celsius region, which is lower to mid-60s. And if we do a little parcel lift, yeah, we can see that capping is not very significant. Most of this is all positive area, so we're pretty well set up for showers and thunderstorms here with that kind of sounding. We had a little bit more capping yesterday, and not so much today because of the approach of the upper level dynamics that we saw coming in, the height falls and cooling in the mid-levels. Well, I'm surprised we got 5 people in here. I figured we'd only have a handful. I'm sorry I had to come on early. I was debating whether to come on at 8 o'clock at the usual time, but that would have been kind of disruptive. So we'll just try to get back on schedule tomorrow. And let's go ahead and run through the forecast maps real quick. Okay, current picture looking like this. Okay, we pretty much know where the fronts are by doing our surface and 850 analysis, so there we go. And running that forward to tomorrow, we're going to see things shift eastward. So for our webcast tomorrow, which hopefully it will be at the usual time, I don't like doing these things off unexpectedly like this at weird hours, but here it is. This front here, that's moving on to the coast. This actually, through the Central Plains, that looks more kind of like I can definitely see the frontal zone right in this area here. So we do have the remains of a front maybe in this region, and maybe the remains of a front right here, Oklahoma, Kansas, but I think most of this is dominated by the lee side trough. We just don't have the upper air support to really pull that frontal system together here. Does that change by Wednesday? Yeah, a little bit. Looks like we pulled this part of the front together pretty well. Little Alberta Clipper moving southward. This area here, there's a definite front there, but it looks like the area is mostly under the influence of this high pressure, so this is a frontalysis zone. It's probably not going to pull together and tighten up. Thursday looking like this, very strong cold air advection. This is mostly focused on the eastern U.S., as you can see here. But a bit of that will push through Texas here. There's that high pressure. So anything east of that high pressure will be under the influence of cold air advection. Looks like a new Alberta Clipper starting to shape up to the north. Then let's see, for Friday's map, high pressure in the Central Plains moves southeast, and we start getting under a warm air advection pattern. Here comes that new Alberta Clipper across the Dakotas and Minnesota, and a tail end of that through Idaho and Oregon. That might be being picked up by a Pacific system. Yeah, in fact, there it is right there. So on Saturday, when we do our webcast, and Christmas Eve, we may do some sort of special here. I may be in San Antonio for that, and we might try to have some fun with the webcast. System coming through Southern California right there, and that connects up with this Great Plains system, which is looking like this. Looks like a little bit of moisture coming up the Mississippi River Valley through Louisiana and East Texas. Then New Year's Day. Here comes the Pacific system going in through West Texas right there. And looks like a lot of moisture coming onto the coast of Texas, so we're going to look for thunderstorms in that area that day. Then Monday the 2nd lifts very rapidly up to the north, kind of like what we had today. And it looks like it's trying to bring in some very strong cold air advection in the wake of that for Tuesday. And now we're getting about 240 hours out, so it does look like the models are going pretty consistent with this very strong push of cold air southward. See that 540 line coming south? This isn't quite into the fantasy world of 300 hours, but so I think at 240 hours here, this is probably a good possibility. We're going to see this polar push moving southward, and maybe a little chance of winter weather, certainly. And then 300 hours out, things get a little bit more up in the air. But it does look like cold there for the first week of 2017 here. And then there's the last chart I have. This is January 11th, 384 hours out, and that's showing another strong norther on its way south. Got my colors mixed up there. Okay, so I think that's going to be it. I'm going to have to hit the road here pretty soon. But like I said, we'll try to get on schedule for tomorrow, and I appreciate you joining us. Yeah, I'm going to try to make it to Denver. I went ahead and booked the hotel, and we'll see how that goes. And yeah, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for watching.